They put a plastic wristband on me, like I was luggage. The door clicked behind my daughter, and the hallway smelled like bleach and boiled carrots. Temporary, she said, like grief is temporary, like losing your keys is temporary. I pressed my palm to the window, watched my family's taillights shrink, and I decided something. I was not going to fade under fluorescent lights. They put me in a nursing home, but I wasn't done living yet. If you've ever been benched from your own life, stay with me, because this is where everything starts to turn. I didn't arrive here gently. I fought, I begged, I said terrible things. But in the quiet that followed, a different voice woke up, the one I'd silenced for years. That voice led me to a chipped counter, a dented pot, and a camera I didn't know how to use. It led me to strangers who felt like family, and to a name from my past that made my heart forget its age. Keep watching. The surprise isn't that I survived here, it's how wildly I began to live. The day my children decided I was safer here, the sky was the color of old dishwater. I remember that because I was standing in my kitchen, the kitchen that had survived 2 marriages, 3 Thanksgiving fires, and 1 granddaughter's slime experiment. And I could see the storm rolling over the maple trees through the window above the sink. "Mom, please," Megan said, folding a tea towel for no reason other than to keep her hands busy. She was always folding something. Schedules, plans, our lives. Daniel stood by the door like a guard who hadn't chosen the post. "It's not safe for you to be alone anymore," he said. "After the fall." "I tripped over your opinion," I snapped. It was mean. I knew it when I said it. I said it anyway. They'd already done the tours, picked the place with the cheery brochure and the fountain out front. Willow Grove Senior Living, with a logo that looked like a leaf floating downstream. I stared at that leaf and thought, that's exactly how they see me, something that's already let go. The movers arrived. Good men, careful with my boxes. One asked if the bunt pan was special because I'd wrapped it like a newborn. "It's part of who I am," I said, startling myself with the truth of it. I left the house in a raincoat, the color of lemons, the one I always wore when I pulled weeds. The hood framed my face in a ridiculous way, like a cartoon monk, perhaps fitting for someone being delivered to a monastery of old age. Willow Grove was bright and beige, the way places get when they're designed to offend no one and comfort everyone. Daniel signed papers. Megan carried a tote bag full of my prescriptions and labeled them with a Sharpie like camp supplies. A woman with a name tag that said Carol smiled too much. "We love new residents," she chirped, as if this were a party I'd been slow to RSVP to. My room had a window. The trees outside were slender and young. Their trunks looked uncertain. The bed had rails. There was a call button on a cord, and a laminated menu taped to the dresser with clip art peas. Someone had placed a vase with silk flowers by the sink. Silk! The first unkindness. "Mom," Megan said, placing my framed photo of the kids on the nightstand, "we can bring more things next week. Your quilts, the spice rack, that set of blue bowls you like." I imagined my spice rack in this room, a museum exhibit of a woman who used to salt her chicken by instinct alone. "What will you do with my table?" I asked. Silence. Then Daniel stood straighter. "We'll sell it, Mom." That table had grooves along its edge from where I pressed a fork too hard when the gravy misbehaved. It had nicks from homework pencils and a ring burned into one corner from a pot of caramel I was sure I could handle. My fingerprints were in that wood the way a river leaves itself in rock. Right, it's just a table. Megan hugged me like she was trying to fix something that was already broken. "We love you," she whispered. You'll make friends here. You always find a way. I wanted to say, then let me do it at home. But I also saw the fear behind her eyes. The way she flinched when I reached for a step stool last month. The way she cried after I called to say I couldn't remember the word for colander. I was 72, and my bones had opinions of their own. I hated being a problem they were trying to solve. When they left, I stood in the center of the room and listened to the building hum. The air system, the distant TV from the lounge, someone's laughter rolling down the hall like a marble. I pressed the call button just to see what power felt like. A nurse appeared within a minute, her sneakers whispering. Her badge said, Rosa. "Everything okay, Ms. Lane?" she asked, dark eyes kind, not pitying. I was testing the emergency in case I suddenly remember I'm old. She smiled. "You can be old and still hate silk flowers." I liked her immediately. That first evening, I tried the dining room. The tables were round, the kind meant for conversation. The room smelled like cumin trying to be chilly. I took a seat near the window. An elderly man with a Marine's posture rolled up in a wheelchair. "Walt," he said, offering a hand whose knuckles looked like small moons. "Eleanor," I said. "But if you call me Ellie, you won't be wrong." He laughed. "They call me lots of things, mostly after I win at bingo." I scanned the menu. "Chicken a la king," it announced, as if royalty had weighed in. When the plate arrived, the sauce was the exact color of beige paint. I lifted a forkful, and my throat tightened. Not from the food, but from the memory of chicken pie bubbling in my own oven, crust like golden lace. "First day?" Walt asked, chewing with the patience of someone who has counted many days already. "You can tell." "You're wearing your real shoes," he said, nodding at my sensible lace-ups. "Most of us surrender to the slip-ons by week 2. I smiled despite myself. "I plan on keeping my laces." He pointed his chin toward the far table, where a neat woman in a blue cardigan ate with geometric precision. "That's Miriam," he said. "She does crosswords in ink, across, down, life." Miriam glanced up then, assessing me with eyes that missed little. She lifted her glass of water in a tiny salute and returned to her grid. I liked her too, though she didn't know it yet. After dinner, I wandered past the lounge. A game show shouted answers to questions no one asked. A woman dozed with her mouth open, the soft sound of her dreaming filling the space between commercials. On the corkboard, a schedule: chair yoga, Bible study, movie night, PG-13, edited, gardening club, indoor succulents, baking hour canceled until further notice. I stared at that last line. Canceled. The word felt personal. Back in my room, I unpacked slowly. A whisk, a wooden spoon older than my children, its handle polished by 1,000 casseroles. I set them in the top drawer like other women set perfume. I placed the bunt pan on the closet shelf because I could not bear to put it beside a call button. When the night nurse came to check vitals, I told her I couldn't sleep unless I could hear a little noise, a radio or a fan. She brought me a small machine that made ocean sounds. I chose rain, closed my eyes, and instead of sleeping, I remembered the smell of cinnamon bottoms of toast, my first apartment's oven that ran too hot, Leo's hands. Oh, Leo. Guiding mine as I learned how to flip pancakes without fear. I hadn't thought of him in years. The brain is a strange pantry. It keeps what you think you've used up. At 3 a.m., the hallway was a soft river of fluorescent mercy. I padded in my socks to the little resident kitchenette, the one with the sign that said, "Residents may prepare light snacks under supervision." No one supervised at 3 a.m. I opened a cabinet, salt, tea, instant oatmeal, a dented saucepan. My fingers closed around the pot's handle, and something ancient inside me stood up. I didn't cook. Not that night. I just held the pot. I felt the weight of it in my palm, the way a dancer might rest her foot against the bar after years away. I set it back as if it might startle. In the morning, Megan called. "How was your first night?" she asked, her voice too bright. I met a man who cheats at bingo, I said. She laughed, relief slipping through the line. You'll find your rhythm. After breakfast, an activities aide named Jenna introduced herself. Young, pink hair like a sunrise no one asked for, but everyone secretly enjoyed. She said, we're restarting some clubs. Used to have a baking hour, but the volunteer moved away. Why did you cancel instead of adapting the recipe? I asked. She tilted her head. I wish I could say I'd planned the line. It just arrived, fully baked. We don't have a staff member comfortable leading it, insurance and all, she said. My mouth opened. I closed it. I was a woman with a wristband and a call button. I was not a leader of anything here. In the afternoon, the sky cleared and the young trees outside my window trembled like they were trying to remember how to be rooted. I sat with Walt by the fountain, which made the kind of water sound rich neighborhoods buy for their courtyards. You cook, he said, like a weather report. How can you tell? I asked. Your hands, he said. They look like they've held hot things and made decisions. I stared at them, at the little scars, at the way my fingers curved as if around an invisible spoon. I used to, I said. I don't know who I am if I don't. Walt shrugged. Then be her. We've got a kitchenette that thinks it's a museum. Might as well remind it it's a kitchen. I laughed, a real one. It felt scandalous in that tidy courtyard. That evening, Rosa brought my dinner when I didn't go down, the beige chicken again, politely resigned. She stayed a minute, leaning on the doorframe. I saw you looking at the bulletin board, she said. You miss baking? I nodded. It's the only place I never felt old. Rosa glanced toward the hall, lowered her voice. If you ever wanted to, show some of the ladies a thing or two, I could look the other way. I'm good at not seeing what I'm not seeing. I didn't answer then. I didn't need to. The word canceled still itched. When the lights were out and the building hummed its lullaby again, I whispered into the dark, I'm still here. It wasn't a declaration. It was a test, like tapping a cake to see if it springs back. Somewhere down the hall, a kettle began to murmur. It could have been a radiator. It sounded like water preparing itself for tea. I closed my eyes and saw a different kitchen, a communal one, bright and flawed, crowded with hands that had learned to be careful and hearts that had learned to be brave. I saw a camera propped on a stack of cookbooks I didn't own anymore. I saw strangers watching, tasting, remembering their grandmothers. I wasn't ready to call it a plan, but the batter was starting to come together. The next morning, the air carried that institutional smell. Detergent, cabbage, a whisper of dust that never left. But somewhere beneath it, I caught something faint. Nutmeg. My heart leapt the way it does when a song from your youth drifts out of a stranger's car window. I followed the scent down the hall, past the bulletin board with its lifeless flyers, until I found Miriam in the kitchenette, tilting a spice jar over a mug of warm milk. You're cheating, I said. She raised an eyebrow, spoon in midair. On who? On boredom. Miriam smiled thinly. Better than bingo. She slid the jar toward me. Nutmeg, just as I suspected. I cupped it in my hand, breathed deep. For a second, I wasn't in Willow Grove. I was in my own kitchen. Christmas morning. Leo cracking walnuts with the heel of a shoe because we'd lost the nutcracker. My chest tightened, half ache, half sweetness. Miriam sipped her drink. Used to be a baking club here. Canceled. I saw, I said, sharper than I meant. She studied me. You bake? Baked, I corrected. Past tense. The word felt like exile. Her gaze dropped to my hands. Those aren't past tense hands. I didn't reply, but something inside me tilted. That afternoon, Jenna, the pink-haired aide, invited us to chair yoga. I tried. I really did. But halfway through pretending to be a tree while sitting in a plastic chair, I caught Walt's eye. He winked, toppled sideways on purpose, and the instructor gasped like he'd fractured the earth. I laughed so hard my ribs hurt. When it ended, I said to Walt, "You nearly killed that poor girl." She needed a story for dinner. Now she's got one. We walked. Well, he rolled, I walked, back toward the lounge. His voice dropped. "Word is, you can cook." I squinted at him. Word spreads fast in a place this small. Faster than gravy over potatoes. "So, can you?" Instead of answering, I led him to the kitchenette. It was pathetic. 2 burners, a toaster older than I was, cabinets lined with instant soup. But when I opened the drawer and saw a whisk, bent at the neck but sturdy, my fingers twitched with old muscle memory. I told him, "Watch the door." Walt grinned. "Now you're talking." I boiled water. Not much, just enough for tea. But then I found a sleeve of graham crackers and a half jar of peanut butter in the cabinet. I crushed the crackers with the heel of my hand, stirred them into the peanut butter, added a drizzle of honey from a forgotten packet. My hands moved like they remembered without me. Walt sniffed the air. "What is that?" I said, "Improvisation. It's ugly, but it tastes like childhood." I shaped the mixture into clumsy little balls, pressed them onto a paper plate. He took one, bit, and closed his eyes. Reminds me of camping, before Korea, before everything. I ate one too. Sweet, messy, simple. It made me feel like I opened a window in a locked room. When we finished, I wiped down the counter, washed the saucepan. My heart was beating too fast, as if I'd committed a crime. Maybe I had. A crime against resignation. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the room, looked at the bundt pan on my closet shelf. What good was a pan without an oven? Still, the sight of it comforted me, like a secret. On my nightstand lay the cell phone Megan insisted I keep. I rarely touched it. Too many buttons, too many notifications that weren't meant for me. But I picked it up now, thumb trembling, and typed into the search bar, "How to record video." The screen glowed back instructions. Simple. Impossible. I whispered into the dark. Who would even watch? But a quieter voice inside me answered, "Maybe someone who needs you." The next day, I convinced Rosa to let me supervise a few ladies in the kitchenette. She shrugged. "As long as nobody sets fire to the place, I don't see a thing." 3 women shuffled in. Miriam with her sharp eyes, Florence with her hummingbird hands, and June, who always knitted but never finished anything. "What are we making?" Florence asked. I said, "Memories," before I could stop myself. I pulled out Ritz crackers, cream cheese, a handful of celery sticks from the fridge. Pathetic ingredients, but I showed them how to spread, how to cut, how to decorate with tiny sprigs of parsley someone had stashed behind a carton of milk. When we carried the tray to the lounge, Walt clapped slowly. "Ladies and gentlemen, culinary rebellion." Even Miriam smiled, faint but real. That night, Rosa stopped by my room. She said, "I heard about your snack revolt. Someone filmed a bit of it." She held out her phone. On the screen, shaky footage of me laughing, hands busy, eyes brighter than they'd been in months. "Would you mind if I posted it?" she asked. "My niece runs some social page. People eat this stuff up." I hesitated. Who wants to watch old women make crackers? Rosa tilted her head. Who wants to watch cats chase lasers? Who wants to watch people unwrap boxes? The internet is hungry for everything. She left before I could answer, but the idea stuck like sugar on my tongue. 2 days later, Rosa cornered me in the dining room. She said, "Your video has 4,000 views." My fork froze. 4,000! What? People loved it. The comments. "Reminds me of my grandma. Wish she'd teach me. She's adorable." "You've got fans, Eleanor." I stared at her, heart racing. Me, A woman they'd tucked away like winter clothes. Fans! That night, I looked at my phone again. My thumb hovered over the camera icon. I set it against the bunt pen on my shelf, hit record, and whispered into the lens. My name is Eleanor Lane. They put me in a nursing home, but I'm not done cooking. Tonight, I'm going to show you how to make bread pudding out of whatever scraps you can find in the pantry, because sometimes life gives you scraps, and sometimes scraps make the best meal. I pressed stop. My hands were trembling, but inside me something was rising, like dough in a warm oven.
The next morning, Jenna burst into the dining hall holding her phone like it was on fire. "Eleanor," she called, loud enough to make heads swivel. "You're trending." My coffee nearly sloshed over the rim. Trending? At my age? That sounds like a medical condition. She shoved the screen toward me. There I was, my wrinkled hands breaking day-old rolls into a bowl, my voice explaining how to coax sweetness out of stale bread. The comments scrolled like ticker tape. "She reminds me of my grandma's kitchen." I'd watch her over any celebrity chef. Protect Eleanor at all costs. I laughed so hard it startled a few residents. They must be bored out there in the world. "No," Jenna said, eyes shining. "They're starved for this. For you." That night, Rosa helped me prop my phone on a stack of cookbooks the staff donated. The kitchenette was hardly glamorous, laminate counters, humming fridge, but under the yellow light, it became a stage. "Tonight," I said into the lens, "we're making soup out of scraps, because scraps are just ingredients with low self-esteem." Miriam chopped onions like a surgeon, while Florence sprinkled salt with the solemnity of a priest. Walt provided color commentary from his wheelchair. That's the kind of soup that could win a war. We tasted it together, steam fogging our glasses. I closed the video with a line I hadn't planned. "If you think you're past your prime, remember, soup doesn't care how old the pot is." When Rosa posted it, the numbers doubled, then doubled again. Within a week, people from across the country were commenting, "I'm cooking with you, Eleanor," and "Do you have a cookbook?" The dining hall changed. Where once we sat hunched over beige casseroles, now trays of experimental cookies appeared, loaves of bread rose in the oven, and laughter spilled louder than the TV game shows. Even the staff hovered, sneaking bites, eyes brighter. One afternoon, a delivery truck pulled up, boxes stacked high, all addressed to me. Rosa helped me slice them open. Inside, measuring cups, aprons embroidered with Team Eleanor, jars of vanilla extract, even a brand new stand mixer, gleaming like a spaceship. "Your fans sent these," Rosa said, whispered, awed. "They call themselves the Lane Brigade." I pressed my palm against the cool metal of the mixer. For the first time since I'd arrived, my hands trembled, not from weakness, but from too much life trying to get out at once. Then came the local news. A reporter in a Navy suit showed up with a cameraman asking if they could film a segment. 72-year-old Eleanor Lane turning a nursing home into the hottest kitchen online. Walt polished his glasses. "You're famous now. Don't forget us little people." I swatted him with a dish towel. "You're taller sitting down than most men standing up." When the piece aired, my children called in tears. "Mom, you look incredible," Megan said. "I didn't know you had this in you." I wanted to say, "I always had it, you just stopped seeing it," but instead I said, "Neither did I." Weeks passed. The subscriber count climbed past 50,000. Letters arrived, handwritten ones from people saying my recipes reminded them of home, or that their laugh got them through chemo, or that they'd started cooking with their grandkids because of me. Each envelope felt like oxygen. I pinned them to my wall until the paint disappeared beneath words from strangers who somehow knew me better than my own children. But nothing prepared me for the email that appeared one Thursday night. Subject line: "Is this really you, Ellie?" The sender: Leo Harrington. My breath caught. My Leo! The boy who once guided my hands at a skillet, the man who'd kissed me under a harvest moon before war and duty pulled us apart. We hadn't spoken in half a century. I clicked it open. "Saw you on the news. Thought you were gone. I never forgot your bread pudding. Or you. Would love to see you again. Still in town if you'll have me." I read it 3 times, then pressed the laptop shut like it was a secret I wasn't ready to unwrap. My heart pounded against my ribs as if it wanted to leap straight into the past. Walt rolled into the room. "You look like you saw a ghost." "I might have," I whispered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the bunt pan in my closet. It gleamed faintly in the streetlight sneaking through the blinds. My hand itched to pick it up, to bake something I hadn't dared in years. But more than that, my heart ached for something else, something I'd buried under years of routine and silence, the possibility that love wasn't done with me either. The videos had given me back my voice, but Leo's email? That felt like the world giving me back my heartbeat, and I wasn't sure which scared me more, answering him or not.
The following week, the mail cart rattled down the hall like Santa's sleigh. Boxes, letters, even a bouquet of sunflowers so bright they lit up the beige corridors. On top of one box was a card. "For Eleanor, the internet's grandma. Don't stop teaching us." Rosa beamed as she helped me carry it all in. "You're international now. Someone in Australia mailed you Tim Tams." I laughed, dizzy. Australia! My recipes had crossed oceans when I could barely cross the courtyard without help. That night, we filmed again. I made chicken pot pie, my husband's old favorite, the one dish that had gotten us through lean years and arguments. The camera was crooked, the crust uneven, but when I cut into it and the steam rolled out, I said, "This pie forgives you when life won't." By morning, the video had 500,000 views. People stitched it into their own videos, crying, laughing, holding plates of food that looked just like mine. Someone wrote, "Eleanor doesn't just cook, she heals." The local station returned, then national morning shows. Before I knew it, I was on live video calls with polished anchors in New York who asked, "What's your secret to staying so vibrant?" I smiled at the screen and answered honestly. "They put me here to be quiet, but food is my way of speaking, and it turns out the world was hungry to listen." The attention changed Willow Grove, too. The kitchen was no longer a forgotten corner. It became the heartbeat of the home. Residents crowded in, even the shy ones. Miriam cracked jokes over pie crust, Florence learned to frost cupcakes, Walt gave running commentary like he was hosting a sports show. And the staff stopped treating us like relics. They asked for recipes. They joined in. The line between resident and caregiver blurred into laughter, sugar, and flour. But amid all the noise, Leo's email pulsed in the back of my mind like a kettle threatening to whistle. Days passed before I found the courage to write back. "Dear Leo, yes, it's me. I never forgot you either. The world is strange. I'm famous for bread pudding now. Come by Willow Grove if you dare. The kitchen smells like second chances." I almost deleted that last line, but didn't. He came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the lounge, flour on my apron, when the door opened and there he stood. Older, yes, thinner, hair white as sifted sugar. But his eyes? Still that stormy blue that once made my knees betray me. "Ellie," he said, voice catching on the name. "Leo." My throat ached around it. He crossed the room slowly, leaning on a cane. When he reached me, he held out a trembling hand. I placed mine in it, scarred fingers fitting back into their old mold. "I thought you were gone," he whispered. "I thought I was too until now." The room around us blurred, TV buzzing, dishes clinking, but for a heartbeat it was just us,
two kids who grown old but never outgrew each other. Over the next weeks, Leo became part of our world. He sat at the counter, peeling apples, telling war stories Walt pretended to critique. He laughed at my terrible jokes, remembered my old ones, and looked at me in a way that made me feel younger than I dared to admit. The Lane Brigade online went wild when he appeared in a video slicing fruit with careful precision. "Is that Eleanor's boyfriend?" the comments demanded. I blushed like a schoolgirl. "Let them wonder," Leo said, squeezing my hand under the table. The climax came when Willow Grove hosted its first ever community feast. Tables stretched across the dining hall, covered in dishes we'd cooked: pies, soups, roasted chicken, even a towering bundt cake I made with trembling hands and Leo's steady guidance. Families came, staff came, strangers who'd followed my channel drove hours just to taste the food. The air was thick with cinnamon, laughter, music. At the head of the room, I tapped my spoon against a glass. The chatter dimmed. They thought this place was an ending for me, but it wasn't. It was the oven where I rose again. Thank you for eating with me, for believing in me, for reminding me that life doesn't end until we stop seasoning it. Cheers, claps, even tears. Walt shouted, "Speech of the century," and Miriam toasted me with her water glass. Leo leaned in and whispered, "Ellie, you've always been a feast." I nearly cried into the bundt cake. That night, after the last dish was washed, I stood alone in the quiet kitchen. My reflection shimmered in the mixer's silver bowl. I touched the bundt pan, still warm from its duty, and whispered, "They put me in a nursing home, but I wasn't done living, and I don't think I'll ever be." The hum of the fridge answered like applause.
When the lights dimmed and the building settled into its nightly hum, I sat by my window with the bundt pan on my lap. The trees outside swayed in the dark, their thin trunks stronger than they looked, just like me. I thought about the word done. My children thought I was done. Society thought I was done. Even I, on those first nights of silence and silk flowers, believed I was done. But here I was, apron still dusted with flour, heart beating like a drum that refused to quiet. I'd found a way to be useful again, not by chasing youth, but by honoring every scar, every story, every recipe life had handed me. I discovered that living isn't measured by the years left on the clock, but by the fire left in your soul, and mine was still burning. As I placed the bundt pan back on the shelf, I whispered to the dark. They put me here to fade away, but instead, I became louder, brighter, fuller. Life doesn't end when the world says so. It ends when we stop tasting it. And I wasn't about to stop tasting anything. Not bread pudding, not laughter, not love. Not now, not ever. If this story reminded you that life still holds flavor, no matter your age, share it with someone who needs to taste hope again. And if you're new here, stay. There are more stories, more recipes, more second chances waiting.